Hey, do you know what's cool about making videos while completely divorced from any desire to engage with the content-lore trappings of this platform? I do not let the idea that this video would be considered late enter my head. This isn't my day job, and I'm only going to worry about deadlines during the hours of 9 to 5 between Monday and Friday, and with monetary motivation. I do this for me, not to engage with the machine. But there is a reason why this was so late, and it's because I did take a lot of time kind of struggling to write about this. Not because they aren't great games, no, they rule, but because something we'll get into towards the end of the video. But enough B-roll. Let's get into it. I do not know how to properly describe the culture of late 90s when it came to skateboarding. Because I was like 9 at the time, my views were so ground level, but also because I lived in the sticks, so small in scale. What I do remember was the rise of skateboarding and extreme sports. The shit was so entirely youth zeitgeist. Like, why would you be content with the American pastimes of baseball, football, or basketball when you could be watching snowboarding, BMX, or the holy father of them all, skateboarding? Skating was by no means new, but the sort of second wave in popularity had happened. Like, when I think of 80s skateboarding, my mind's eye always sees safety equipment. Skaters wore pads and helmets. In the late 90s, skateboarding was a full-on punk rock countercultural movement. Skateboarding was cool and safety gear was fucking lame. The fact that the youth culture of skateboarding was able to make it to my neck of the very fucking literal woods meant that it was an undeniable force. If I could get bullied at school for wearing cool graphic tees from PacSun that were about skateboarding because everyone knew I didn't really skate and threw me in lockers for being a poser, well then shit, must have been real. With the X Games being founded in 1995, extreme sports were digestible by even the most woodland of creatures such as myself. Regardless that the nearest pavement was miles away, I could turn on the TV, I could read it in magazines at the school library, I could tell it was affecting fashion and culture among my peers. Skateboarding was in. And in 1999, when Tony Hawk's Pro Skater dropped, it reached a fever pitch. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater dropped at maybe the most relevant time imaginable. Tony Hawk himself was already helping with the game's development when he went and hit the fucking 900, one of the most iconic moments in skateboard history, and the devs were able to make the 900 a late addition before the game came out. It doesn't get any better than that. Tony Hawk hits the 900, a couple months later, a game with his goddamn name on it comes out. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 was a massive release. The open levels, the objectives you completed, the literally iconic soundtrack, not the first licensed soundtrack of its kind, but easily the first big, successful one I can think of. That fucking wicked sound when you get a tape or do a special move, we were all playing it, and it fucking ruled. I only had an N64, so I was able to experience my first ever case of buyer's remorse when I got that fucking wicked cool blue cartridge, popped that sucker in, and was greeted with a horrifically butchered soundtrack. It's maybe worth talking about Tony Hawk 1 just a bit because of how much 2 builds on the foundation. I don't know if I've ever really seen this remarked on, but Tony Hawk's Pro Skater isn't just a sports game. It's an adventure RPG as well. You complete quests to improve your character and advance through the game. It's light, but it's there. It wants to push you to perform better and not necessarily just through raw playability. It's not just about sports expression. It's about leveling up as you go and gaining avatar strength too. I think this really separates Tony Hawk from the pack and made it the standout hit that it is. Little did we know that another Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was on the horizon, and it was going to make the first game look obsolete. I do not know if I can think of a better jump in direct sequel quality than Tony Hawk 1 to Tony Hawk 2. We can't even pretend to beat around the bush. The inclusion of manuals took the game into overdrive. Tony Hawk 1 was already very tightly structured in a lot of places. You could see where the developers created lines for combos, and being able to link together grinds was one of the most rewarding things you could do. Manuals were actually planned for Tony Hawk 1, but didn't make it in due to time constraints. But holy shit, once they made it in, the game had changed. There was still an incredible tightness to level design, probably even more so than in Tony Hawk 1, but now, if you could keep your speed and balance, the world was your oyster. It wasn't about just identifying lines anymore, but identifying multiple lines you could link together. It was like a "if you build it, they will come" moment. The restrictions felt removed in a way that was intoxicating. Sure, this system would be expanded on in Tony Hawk 3 and Underground, but nothing was going to top the gap in gameplay between not having manuals and having those beautiful manuals. But it's not like it stopped there. We now had switched stances, sloppy and perfect bonuses that honestly have the same DNA of getting perfect note hits in rhythm games. Levels were larger and more interactive. The soundtrack is debatably better. I think Tony Hawk 2 is the better soundtrack, with the exception that ska was kind of left out in the dust. A create a skater system, a create a level system. The adventure RPG elements have been increased. Levels have more areas that can be unlocked through exploration. Objectives are now gated by stat progress. I don't think it's possible for some characters to get to the School 2 secret tape. You have to play and earn money elsewhere to upgrade your stats so that you can come back and fucking ramp that bitch. In a calendar year, they had been able to build on the first game's foundation, and the results were legitimately awesome. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 has gone on to be heralded as one of the greatest games of all time, and I really think it deserves that accolade. It's so impressive that Neversoft was able to strike while the iron was hot, and then somehow do it a second time and way better. It has aged very gracefully as well. You can still feel that sense of speed and that thrill of linking combos together for big scores. It's a testament to how good the game is that even Tony Hawk 3 and Underground, the games that undeniably move the game mechanics forward in beneficial ways, can only stack up next to but not be universally seen as passing Tony Hawk 2, even with its comparatively rudimentary systems. Much like how Tetris was so engaging that it left an imprint on brains that allowed the user to reference the combination of Tetrinos in relation to real-world combinations, Tony Hawk left a similar imprint. The Tony Hawk effect to Tetris's Tetris effect. You just play enough Tony Hawk and you can see the world in lines. You can see in the meat space around you what a combo route would look like and could look like under the laws of the Pro Skater universe. So few games are able to shake you down to your most primal functions, to rework your pattern recognition instincts. It sounds so silly, so analytically avant-garde and pompous, but the Tony Hawk games shape the way you see the world, and that's so fucking impressive. But enough about Metacritic ratings and the like. Why is Tony Hawk 2 so good in my eyes? Well, obviously it was an incredibly hot game series that fucking ruled to play, but there's actually a moment I can pinpoint where I thought I might be playing one of the greatest games ever. So Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 included the Create a Park mode, which, holy fuck. Are you tired of every main level now that you have them memorized down to a fucking atomic level? Then make your own goddamn level. Go to town, make something cool, make something cursed. Just the fact that you could make something was a whole different layer to this already stunning game. But creating a level requires work and creativity. Sure, you had all these tools in front of you, but what if you really didn't know how to use them? What happens next is what I imagine happened to people who thought they beat Symphony of the Night, only to learn about the second castle. When you look at Create a Park and you see the list of pre-made custom parks available, the back of my head lifted off. Are you fucking kidding me? There's this many levels left in the game for me to play? They are not as intricate as the main levels, but holy shit, dude, there's so much here, and most of them have really cool ideas behind them. Up, down, repeat, a large vert map with gap gimmicks of being a department store mall. That's fucking tight. Pit of Death, a straightforward level that starts you off with this huge spike pit you could try to clear. Montana, literally nothing. It's just a fucking tree in the middle. I'm not even joking. I've never forgotten this park because that's so fucking funny that someone would put this in the game. It's awesome. You can tell they were just having a fucking ball with it. Yeah, maybe these parks didn't have the most square footage to them, but they had ideas. And when they didn't have ideas, they had fun. There are so many parks that aren't just cool zones and cool lines, but neat ideas with how you can play the game. Tag Maze is exactly that, a mostly flat zone with pillars and spike pits for 2 players to play tag in. The Milvey Raceway is a thin but long park that has a symmetrical line for both players to race down and see who can make it to the end first. They fucking knew how many cool permutations you could make out of the Tony Hawk system, and by doing so, told the player to live as free as they could with their own creativity. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 is a treasure chest of entertainment. You could have it all with this game because it gives and gives and gives. There is so much left in this game that I haven't even discussed. It's that deep and enjoyable. The series as a whole has multiple fantastic entries, but I think Tony Hawk 2 stands above all of them as a seismic change in the game. This release took whatever the old bar was and shattered it, giving you more bang for your buck than you thought was ever possible. It's an old thought experiment, but it rings true. If you were stuck on an island and you could only have like 3 games to play, I would easily pick Tony Hawk's Pro Skater as one of them. It was so good back then, and fuck me, it is just as good now. Welcome to the intermission. I had to go get another beer because this is the second time I've done this. I fucked up the audio on the first one. Anyways, with the release of this video, we are rounding the bend on the big 4-digit mark, the big 1K. And so in celebration of that, I am going to have a little bit of a poll for viewers. Now, it's not for the next video. The next video is going to be a competitive primer. That's already set in stone and we're working on it right now. However, you will have a poll to vote on the video you want to see after that. So, let's run down the options. Actually, let me put on some like options music, and I'll put on like the options voice. Option 1, top 5 favorite video games. Number 2. Option 2, a video specifically about Street Fighter 4. Not a competitive primer. Option 3, a Persona 5 video about Persona 5. Option 4, a Persona 5 video not about Persona 5. Option 5, playing every Final Fantasy, kinda, Final Fantasy 2. Option 6, a video about a third-person shooter that might become an auto-documentary. Option 7, Age of Discovery with the Sega Saturn 3. So after this video, or after the competitive primer after this video, whichever one gets me over the big 1K, you can expect to see a poll in the community tab on this channel. It'll be open for a little bit, and you'll be able to vote on what video you want to see off of this channel next. Anyways, back to the video. A couple years back, Thora High Heels put out a video about Silent Hill 2 and its critical immunity. delving into how the perception of the game has been warped. Not because it's overrated, but by the need to try and explain away any potential criticism of even the barest detail as some Mensa-level 4D chess move that would eternally hold weight as a metatextual commentary on the medium of video games, or something. And the problem is that when it comes to such fart-sniffing comments like that on the game, it's not impossible that they are right. The true intentions of what all of Team Silent saw for Silent Hill 2 will never come out. It's impossible to track down every individual that meaningfully helped on the game and have them explain why they did the thing. Why was there a hole there? And why is it gone? Explain, Hiroyuki Owaku, explain! The game's already drenched in such heavy symbolism and surreality that almost anything could be an answer. It's almost impossible to criticize Silent Hill 2 meaningfully because the loopy world logic and enigmatic intentions of the entire staff makes for a game where that level of muddiness might be the point, and those trying to decipher every nook and cranny have been tasked with a fool's errand. Not that you can't criticize Silent Hill 2, but with a game so uniformly perceived as one of the true masterpieces of the medium, there isn't that much to gripe about, and there are those out there who want to wave away what little critique that can be there. I think that's what makes Silent Hill 2 such a beautiful game. It's like 80% an unparalleled success in the history of video games, and then 20% a fog that you have to come to terms with yourself. Maybe you don't like the vocal performances. Maybe their off-kilter delivery only sucks you into the world more. That's me. That is my take. And I think the desire to find out which one of these two options is big air quotes correct is dumb. I don't care if it was a byproduct of language barriers in development or if it was a David Lynch level of purposeful uncanniness to set a mood. Either way, you will probably walk away from parts of this game with a feeling about it, and that's the way it should be. And I must reiterate that I think this only works because the majority of the game is so insanely fucking amazing that when faced with aspects of it that we collectively splinter on, it doesn't take much away from the fact that the game is insanely fucking amazing. Let's take my own criticism for starters. I don't like the apartment level very much. It feels weirdly disconnected as a destination of interest and expanded as a level by virtue of kinda needing to be one so you can do things like introduce Pyramid Head or get the flashlight off the Mary outfit. That's all cool, but sometimes I'm in the middle of exploring the apartments and I ask aloud, why is James here again? And I'm certain someone has an answer about how the apartments represent X, Y, and Z within James's psyche and whatnot, and if that's the answer you want to take, I think that's fine. And I also think it's fine if I reject it, because I still think Silent Hill 2 is an insanely fucking amazing game. But I think there's a larger issue at hand for me, and the reason why this video was on the shelf for so long. Not only do I also believe that's not particularly worthwhile to get all the answers from Silent Hill 2, but it doesn't feel worthwhile to critically talk about it anymore either. There isn't anything I can even add about the game. It's been more than 20 years since its release, and I'm not going to say that everything that can be said has been said about it, but I started this video piggybacking off of another video, so brother, we are in trouble here. If you've already played Silent Hill 2, then you probably have your own thoughts on it in some of its more nebulous concepts, and I'm not interested in writing a persuasive essay on why my takes are Chad meme and your takes are virgin meme. That defeats the point of seeing Silent Hill 2 as art. We can individually look at it and see something different. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that one of the most fucking wonderful things ever? It's a richness that video games have been chasing ever since, and I can't think of any that have ever come close. When BioShock Infinite came out and it was heralded as this capital I important video game, the papier-mâché foundation that praise was built on came crashing down under even some of the quickest critique. But that's never happened to Silent Hill 2. We've never gotten far enough away from it to see that maybe it wasn't as good as we thought after all. Never had a critical backlash to its high watermark for artistry that brought it down over time. The closest we got was the HD collection, showing that even trying to recreate the game was a Herculean effort and only being able to offer a middling product in the end. A task that makes it seem almost unabusable by the capitalistic system that owns it. Konami couldn't get hijinks to successfully draw water from the stone, and their newest attempt is a full-blown ugly modern stylings remake by a team much of the gaming populace has already written off. Sure, the Silent Hill spin-offs from the Stories Untold people and the writer for Higurashi look interesting, but even then they feel so totally removed from the original work and just have the name Silent Hill slapped onto them. It's like the ultimate rebellion of art. The best way, by far, to experience the game is as free abandonware with a fan patch, and yet Konami wants to use its popularity as a cash cow, keeping alive their bloated series, but cannot find a way to reap the benefits of its name without massively under-delivering and underperforming. Silent Hill 2 is video gaming's poster child for high art. You can attempt to dissect it, you can book club it, you can theorize on it, and maybe most importantly, you can just enjoy it for its play. Because even with all these angles to look at the narrative or its genre foundational use of psychological horror, it's still a game you play with your hands, and it even succeeds at being a very good one of those as well. So I don't have anything to say about it. If you've played the game, you know how you feel on it, and if you haven't played it, then respectfully, what the fuck, hop on it. It's one of the greatest, most impactful, most unique games ever made. There are few things that can sink its teeth into you like Silent Hill 2, and as much as I wish I could sit here and gush about it, those who have played it don't need to hear that, and those who haven't need to experience it for themselves. It's not a game you can neatly digest into synopsis, not a game you can understand through confirmed as true critical analysis. It's something you simply have to stare into and see what stares back at you in the end. That's why this became a 2-for-1 video, because I don't think I can go that long about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, and I am flexing every creative writing muscle I have to even get this far into talking about Silent Hill 2. It felt kind of demoralizing in a way. Both of these games are releases I hold incredibly close, and writing about them was harder than I wanted to admit. I think I was able to get across everything I needed to about Tony Hawk 2, but buddy, this script was derailed for ages when it came to that blasted Silent Hill 2. This channel so often goes long with its videos that there was kind of this fear that like, hey, I'm talking about some of my favorite games here, but it's a bit more brief than the average. Thankfully, the remaining games of the series do not have that problem. In fact, it will probably be an incredible task to get me to shut up about them. Don't expect those too soon, as these might be some beefy ass videos, but we'll see this to the end. I swear it.
Lost?